Our distinguished guests, we will continue our today's event to the panel Talkshow with the theme COVID-19 and the road to sustainable business. As we all are facing since the last 9 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has big impact on various aspects of our life, including the aspects of sustainability. And this talk show will discuss this hot topic and will be hosted by Mrs. Dewi Fitriasari, PhD.
Mrs. Dewi Fitriasari is a practitioner and researcher in sustainability science with extensive experience. One of the research she did was about business risk management based on the aspect of sustainability. Dewi herself is also board member of the NCSR. Let's welcome Mrs. Dewi Fitriasari to hosting the panel talk show of the 2020 ASRRAT Forum. Ibu Dewi, kami persilahkan.
So, thank you for inviting me as the host of this talk show. And now I would like to introduce all of the 4 panelists that we have here. And of course, first of all, I would like to thank all of the panelists for their willingness to allocate their time and efforts to come and then join us in this talk show. Our first panelist is Dr. Jessica Hanafi. Dr. Hanafi is from PT Life Cycle Indonesia. It's a consulting firm with a team of experts in life cycle assessment and sustainability. And she's an active board of the Indonesian Life Cycle Assessment Network before, which is from 2015 to 2018. And until now, she's working as an expert for the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in promoting life cycle assessment in Indonesia. In 2017, she was appointed as the technical expert for the ISO TC 207 as the National Merit Committee and as an expert on life cycle assessment in the ISO TC 207 Steering Committee 5 in the International Forum since 2018. And in 2019, she was appointed as a consultant for the UN Environment Program and Indonesia Climate Change Trust Fund, where she worked in multiple LCA projects for Bappenas. Our next panelist is Mr. Isaac Liu. Mr. Liu is a certified global reporting initiative by the National Center for Sustainability Reporting and also a certified airport environmental management and sustainable development by Airports Council International. Mr. Liu, in his early career, has served the government-linked company, Malaysia Airports Berhad, in corporate planning and sustainability. In his professional career, he has obtained an executive professional in applied sustainability management from the University of Asia Pacific Philippines and also obtained his dual Master of Business Administration from GNTI International University, Malaysia, and Master of Arts from the University of Hertfordshire, United Kingdom. In the last 10 years, Mr. Isaac has helped his company in winning the multiple accolades for sustainability reporting. And he himself was awarded by the Airport Council International as the top 5 Asia Pacific Young Executive of the Year award for 2017. Our next panelist is Professor Dr. Colin Legarde-Hubo. Professor Hubo is the Executive Director of the Center for Social Responsibility from the University of Asia and Pacific. He spearheaded the integration of sustainability in the curriculum of the university and started the Applied Sustainability Management in Asia Pacific, or ASMAP. And it is actually a professional program that aims to train business executives and professionals in applied sustainability management. In 2007, Professor Hubo introduced the GRI standards in the Philippines and elected as the Stakeholder Council member of the GRI. And he was elected twice for 6 years, from 2006 to 2012. He also been very instrumental in lobbying for the release of the Securities and Exchange Commission's Memorandum Number 4 in 2019, that mandates the PRCs in the Philippines to publish sustainability reports annually. In 2018, he promoted and raised awareness of the Philippines to several PLCs. He guided the first Philippine holdings and its 8 subsidiaries in their transition to integrated reporting by developing a scorecard to ensure the alignment of their frameworks. And he also closely working with the Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, or what we know as SASB, to promote the SASB standard in the Philippines. Early this year, he co-organized the first ever SASB standard conference in the country, and recently also acquired certification from the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or what we know as TCFD. Last but not least is Mr. Thomas Milburn. He's the Director of Corporate Citizenship for Southeast Asia. He's based in Singapore, and he spent the last decade advising and working with large global companies to tackle sustainability challenges and create long-term value for business and society. He leads corporate citizenship consultancy practice by working with corporate clients across Southeast Asia. And he's a specialist in sustainability strategy, sustainability reporting, and corporate governance. In addition, he regularly speaks and writes on those topics. And in education side, he holds the Master of Science in Corporate Governance and Business Ethics from the Birkbeck College, University of London. So I welcome all of the panelists to the talk show. And if you are ready, then we will start with our talk show. There will be some questions, and the first question will be the same across all panelists. And depending on the answer and also the development of the discussion itself, then I will ask slightly different questions between panelists. Now, my first question is related to COVID-19, as we are now all affected by COVID-19, and there will be changes that we would like to discuss more, and that will be the reason why we are going to discuss first about how do you think COVID-19 will direct or redirect business performances globally. So who would like to answer first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first.
Thank you, Thomas.
So I think this is the multi-million-dollar question right now: is how is COVID-19 gonna impact businesses, not just this year, but I think as we look to recovery and building long-term resilience. So we like to look at it across 3 periods, which is the initial response to COVID. What's the impact on business? How is then business looking to rebuild and recover from COVID? And then the last time horizon would be the longer term resilience, looking 5 to 10 years or even longer ahead. I think what's clear in the immediate term, which has been what we've seen unfolding in 2020, is that COVID has really rocked the whole world and certainly fundamentally disrupted and reshaped the business landscape, perhaps in some ways that won't turn back. One of them that we've seen is it's been the biggest remote working and digitalization experiment that I think every company has had to do in some form or another as a way to safeguard workers and their employees, but also to ensure business continuity. And really ensuring business continuity and ensuring that the health and safety of your people and your customers has been what most companies have been focused on these past 9 months or so. But as we look to recovery, and I think most economies now are trying to open up in some way or another and stimulate commercial activity, because a lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of SMEs have been impacted, and in particular, some industries like hospitality and airlines and anything to do with global travel is obviously ground to a halt. But as we look to recovery, I think the long-term impacts will be what have we learned from COVID in terms of the kind of efficiencies and the ways of working that we can continue to take forward? How do we build greater supply chain resilience? I think at a time when we're so interconnected globally. And ultimately, how do we build back our systems stronger? Because COVID-19 has highlighted a lot of vulnerabilities. And then as we look to the long term, and this is where the responsible and sustainable business agenda comes in, I think COVID-19 has really highlighted one thing for me in particular, which is that business is very much part of society and not apart from it. So any external impacts, be they environmental or social, even if they aren't directly impacting the business, if they impact the health of society, then ultimately it'll also impact businesses. So as we look to long-term resilience, issues like climate change, like growing inequality, poverty, a lot of the agenda that's set out by the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, this becomes much more important for long-term resilience. So for me, what COVID has done is really highlight the importance of the role in business and society to create, hopefully, a more resilient and prosperous society over the long term. And I'm sure my esteemed panelists can share their views as well.
How about others? So what will be your perspective in this COVID-19 in terms of the global business performances?
Maybe I would like to respond on that. Yeah. So basically, I have been working with life cycle assessment and resource efficiency related industries and how to help companies. So it is quite interesting how the COVID-19 is dealt. Yeah. More and more people are actually aware now. It's not more. It's no more than sustainability somewhere far away, but it's becoming so real for them, for us all. Especially when I discuss, as Thomas said, that a lot of hospitality industry, for example, they feel the first hand, and we had a case with the hospitality actually, that they struggle on how to maintain their hotel, for example. And then that's when the resource efficiency comes in. They have to innovate and then how to survive in this COVID-19 situation. No guests and things like that, and to maintain the quality of the hotel. Let's say the air, make sure it's not misty and things like that. So it feels like the resource efficiency is there. We really need it, and then it's really we need to focus on things that are really matters to us. That's one of the things that I learned from this COVID-19 situation. And also I think we are very lucky to be in this era where digitalization is already there. And then all of the technology is already there. When we go outside to the mall, let's say, or to public facilities, you already have the touchless functions. Have all the sensors and everything there that make our life easier. When you cannot touch anyone or anything in this kind of situation, you have the electronic money or electronic finance. You just tap on your gadget and things like that. That's very, I would say, lucky for us to be in this kind of situation. And also for several years, I've been for our own operation, for example, for several years, we've been asking our clients to, instead of going to a meeting for 2 hours or 3 hours, we have to travel by airplane. Now, why don't we have a video meeting? We always suggested that before. Just come there and sign documents. So I think it was ridiculous. But now suddenly everything is like that, suddenly, okay, let's do meeting, and then let's have the document signed digitally and things like that. So gathering people who had been so difficult for us, for example, when we do our studies, we usually gather around some people, for focus discussion or anything. Basically, before, it's really hard to match the schedule, so because we have a schedule here and there and then everything, but now with the technology, you can do that, and then instead of having spare one day, you can spare like 1 or 2 hours. You don't have to travel, and then you can have meetings from one event to another. So it really saves a lot. And then for the community that I've been working with, let's say with the ISO committee even, they said that, you know what, this is really practical. So we can actually have this kind of meetings, still online, even though it's already later on, it's going to be normal, but we can still keep some of the meeting online, engaging more people, and it's really saving the earth in the end. No less carbon footprint, less travel, transport, and things like that. So there are a few good things that actually that come up from this situation, despite all of the sadness and things like that.
Okay, so far what we have will be two interesting perspectives. First is the operational efficiency, change the way we work, and combined with the second perspective, which is the use of technology that make things easier for us to go on with our businesses. But how about the other two panelists? Because all four of you comes from different industries. I would like to learn more about the educational industry and also the other industry. Which one will start? But will that be Colin or Isaac?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So thank you. I agree with Jessica and Thomas that indeed an increasing number of companies are pushing ahead with digital transformation. So we will see more and more businesses will speed up their actions to explore how they can make use of technology to achieve productivity gains, improve working conditions, and help drive higher economic growth. But I have another perspective on the impact of COVID-19, which is because of the pandemic, we may see a shift away from static organizational employee engagement towards a more dynamic form. And by this, I mean this provides a trust-based culture. Trust has always been there, but this time, trust may be approached not as a privacy, compliance, or public relations issue, but as a critical business goal to be pursued. So that makes the post COVID employee engagement more towards trust-based organization. And I would like also to think that the trust-based organization is very much aligned with the type of development that we see post COVID-19, which is a regenerative type of development. In fact, a number of businesses now are using regeneration as a business model, and they dub this as the next wave or going beyond sustainability, as it represents a progressive worldview for achieving development. So regeneration is very much different from what we tend to understand as sustainability, because in regeneration, instead of merely maintaining, businesses should be looking to protect, restore, and replenish the planet and society at the same time. No? So you have these goals to be pursued at the same time, and this requires a paradigm shift in a manner as what Professor Jeremy Rifkin mentioned, no? An economist, an American economist, no? Towards a regenerative system. So those, I think, are my perspective coming from an academic institution. Thank you.
Okay, so that's from the academic institution, in which there are two interesting ideas there, which is the development of trust, because now we are working from home, we are in a distance, but we are still have to be able to work together. And there is this regeneration of the system and of the people, in a way that ideas and also ideals are redeveloped and regenerated there. Then we still have Mr. Isaac here. I would like to hear about your opinion, your perspective on this COVID-19 and how it will direct or redirect business performances globally.
Sure, Dr. Davy. Thanks very much for the wonderful introduction. Just want to check that you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Great. Okay, just to share my my thoughts on these. I think, in my opinion, many companies did not expect, or rather prepare for such unprecedented crisis in this century. If this is basketball tournament, I would say this is just a first half pause, okay, for businesses to rethink and reset the way we do certain things. And again, now the key word here is to rethink and reset. And I believe that moving forward, conventional resilience business strategy does not sufficient to address pandemic-related disruptions. As we all know that, especially I'm coming from the corporate, we never see this kind of pandemic-related disruption that happened at least in the 100 years. So an organization moving forward will incorporate pandemic planning consideration into their existing resilience management activities. And I also believe that companies must also outmaneuver uncertainty by course correcting again and again, and as circumstances change from time to time. And leaders will require to reassess their assumption on doing business and evaluate scenarios and strengthen their ability to sense and response. Well, I'm not sure how COVID-19 pandemic will shape the future, but I believe that we have to be more creative and flexible to fill a growing demand in the future. That's my thought. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So far, we have interesting insights here about how COVID-19 will direct or redirect business performances globally. So we have this operational efficiency changes in the way businesses are made, and then also changes in the assumptions of the businesses, in a way that the business leaders got to be more flexible in assuming their businesses, on their assumptions on how their industry will be during and post-COVID. And also technology innovation is there to help us, luckily. And we also have this regeneration of ideas and ideals about how should business will have to be pushed forward, especially post-COVID-19. So this, I think, is a very valuable insights in regards to the COVID-19 and how it will direct or redirect business performances globally. Even though I got one, maybe you will regard it as a surprise question a bit, but this is just an informal one, and you can answer it when you feel comfortable to answer it. But how do you think that this COVID-19 will actually change globalization? Will globalization stop? Will it continue? How will that change? What do you think? Anyone would like or feel comfortable to try to discuss about it or to answer it from the perspective of the either industry or the unit, the entity, the organization?
Yeah, I'll give my view on it, which I
Thank you.
certainly don't have a crystal ball, so I don't have the
Yes.
answer. But you know, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of different trends happening right now, not just COVID. There's obviously increasing tensions around the world in terms of trade, particularly the US-China dynamic that's happening. I think there's across Europe as well as the United States. So a lot of developed countries are also thinking there's a bit of a more nationalistic movement that's happening. We've seen obviously Brexit in the UK splitting away from Europe. So there are a lot of other dynamics that were at play before COVID struck. I think what COVID has done is highlight how interconnected we all are, right? How much travel, how much trade, how supply chains are so global now. And I hope that will serve as a bit of a wake-up call. I mean, I think Isaac hit the nail on the head just now when he said it's an opportunity for us to rethink and reset. So I hope it won't reverse at least the good effects of globalization. I hope it'll actually show us how important it is to think with a global mindset. But there are other trends at play, you know, politically and other things that are also happening. I think one area where it might reverse globalization is when it comes to things like food security. And I know that particularly here in Singapore, as we're a small island state, if global supply chains shut down, how will we feed the 5 to 6 million people that live in Singapore? So I think there will be across the board a look at how do we ensure food security within borders and look at boosting local industries. But I hope that won't be to the detriment of global trade. At least that's my view.
I cannot agree more than what you said. So I guess the global supply chain will just continue on. But then what do you think about the service industries, like even like consultancies itself? Do you think it will be more localized because of this COVID-19? Or do you think that it will be even more globalized because now we have the technology to support us? So what do you think for the service industries? Just like consultancy, for example, or even university?
I would like to answer on that. Actually, it's becoming even more global. Even on that note, yeah, for consultancy, connecting to people is just getting better and better. And then discussions that it was maybe before it was not natural, maybe. Now it's there. So at the moment, if you time your clock right, meaning that you want to wake up in the middle of the night and meet with all the Americans, let's say, or the those who are in that other side of the continents, then you can get that chance. So it's quite interesting how we can work together, but of course we are losing the human touch, yeah, the social touch. Indeed, that the side talk with this COVID-19 situation. Of course, you are missing that because some of my previous meetings, it was done during the side talks, not within the meeting itself. So it's quite interesting. But globalization, definitely, I would say, depending on the issues, yeah, maybe we can connect to more people possible, but in the way we are keeping our self resilient, yeah, like Thomas said about food security, for example.
Yeah, I agree with you that there will be social touch that we're missing due to this the way we work during the COVID-19 and most possibly after the COVID-19. And I'm glad that all of the four panelists today are very optimistic with the direction and redirection of the business performance globally. Because to be honest, COVID-19 is not the first disaster in this world. I mean, globally speaking, we have other diseases already in and out this whole earth, and human beings are still here. And in fact, we are growing so fast that we need to care more about our resources, about the sustainability of our resources. And that led me to a second question. And this second question is related to the sustainability challenges and opportunities. So for this, I would like to ask first Mr. Isaac. Isaac, what do you think the sustainability challenges and opportunities for your industry or organization post-COVID?
Yeah. I think, okay, there is this Chinese saying, 危机就是转机, which means crisis is a turning point. I think in my view, the challenges that COVID-19 brought to the companies and the industry, many of these companies will have a hard time to reimagine the industry business model. As I mentioned just now, whereby the traditional resilience is simply not enough to confront another next normal. So some of the challenges like the severity of COVID-19 impacts on business is unprecedented, and many still do not know what is the best approach to prevent another health crisis. And as I mentioned just now, that these never happened, at least in the last 100 years. But nevertheless, I think there are some solid opportunity for all of us, regardless of industry, to tap in order to survive and thrive in a post-COVID-19 environment. These companies need to implement a long-term sustainability strategies, okay, which I think that must allow them to capture the opportunity and shape their post-pandemic futures. And again, in these new normal environment, I want to stress that survival is just not enough. And moving forward, maybe companies can look into some of these possibilities, like maybe doubling down on the ESG performance. Yeah, I think by doing well in ESG performance, your company will certainly do well. Second, harnessing new business model and practices. As we can see that the COVID-19 has rapidly disrupted business norms and some of the new business models and practice have been created throughout in the last at least 9 months. And if we can sustain that, some of these new business strategy, possibly it also can reduce emission as well as other impacts. Okay. Like for example, like Dr. Jessica mentioned that pre-COVID, we don't have this kind of like telecommunication, teleworking. Okay, so we have to take our flight from one country to another country, from point A to point B. But now everybody stick with this work from home trend. So I think moving forward, this work from home trend is one of the way that we should live in the new normal. Third, I think we should apply a people first mindset. As Prof. Colin mentioned, that I think the very first, this is also a very important priority for any organizations, especially during a pandemic. The employer have the legal responsibility to ensure a safe and healthy workplace environment, as the staff is the most valuable asset to the company. Nothing more than that. Okay. My fourth point would be, I think, by rebuilding trust and confidence with the stakeholders, by showing them their commitment to addressing ESG issue before it is too late. So my message is the company shouldn't do the business as usual. I mean, in pre-COVID. So we must rebuild by showing a new example to the stakeholders. We're telling them that, okay, we are not going to do something that harm the environment. Okay. And also, I think this is quite important because I read in one of these articles that quite attracted me. Consider the systemic nature of pandemic when designing your response strategies. I think this is very maybe it's new to especially to SME, but to the corporate, we do realize that this is something very important for us to incorporate this systemic nature into our business strategy. Last but not least, I think we must collaborate and partner in order to thrive in this new normal.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Isaac. So those will be the challenges and opportunities and also some innovations that you believe that your organization and the industry where your organization is operating need to pursue during and especially after COVID-19. And it is very interesting for me to learn that you also talk about trust, which is something that Professor Colin also mentioned as related to university perspective on the effect of COVID-19 on and how it will direct business performances. So I would like to continue to Professor Colin then. Colin, are you there? Okay, so
Yes.
Professor, I would like to know your insights on your university itself. So what do you think the business innovations or educational innovations that are needed for universities to maintain the commitment to sustainability? I learned that your university is very committed to sustainability. You even generate your own electricity. So I still remember all of those. So what else then need to be done then as related to this COVID and post-COVID?
Okay. So I think what is interesting with universities is that we are generators of knowledge. I think that's very important. And in the sustainability initiative, in our university, we not only promote sustainability among industries, but we also implement sustainability practices within our academic institutions, starting with, for example, with our energy sources. So we produce our own energy by way of solar energy, and also we have instituted a number of environmental management practices, which is very similar to that of the adopted by companies. But more than that, I think in the push for sustainability and post COVID-19, I think university will have to will have a significant role in trying to influence the industry to rethink the type of future that we want. Because what gets us to COVID in the first place was the future we envisioned it to be not sustainable. So what COVID highlighted is the fact that if we want to pursue the type of model that we're used to, then we will be encountering several COVID-19 in the future. Not just in terms of pandemic, but natural disasters. For example, in the Philippines, just in a single month, we were hit by 2 natural calamities. So I think you've heard of this. We were hit by a typhoon, and then we were hit by COVID-19, and then at the same time flooding. So this type of calamities were a result of unsustainable practices. So we really need to rethink how we do things. So in the university, for example, we are promoting to companies to shape their institutions that put the primacy of the person or and the individual at the core of their business. So more than anything, it should be people first than profit. So before we used to say that people, profit, planet, they are equal. But with the pandemic, I think we should put primacy and more importance to people, and that life is more important than money. I'm not saying that money or economic growth is not important, but when making decisions, I think there has to be a conscious decision on the part of companies to put person at the core of their business. So I think that's one. So that's what the university is doing, and in the curriculum that we are designing, we are putting that in the design of our curriculum. The second is that we're also promoting internet connectivity, because I think what the pandemic have shown us is that there is a very significant internet divide in not only in our country, but I think in the ASEAN region as a whole. So much as we would like to promote remote learning, but we a number of our population is not yet connected to the internet. So how can we then bring any society to a level of development that is conducive and capable of meeting individual needs if we could not connect them to internet, which is a very basic service right now. So those two issues, those are the two issues that our university is working at the moment, making sure that the human person, the individual, is at the core of business operation. At the same time, we are working towards connecting more communities, more societies to the internet. Thank you, Dr. Dewey.
Okay, so thank you. So those are interesting issues in a way that you are promoting the idea to reshape the mind of the business practitioners about how they are going to redirect their businesses, how they are going to be like committed to the sustainability, and if they're used to think about economics or profitability as their main target, then you would like to promote the fact that people are actually in the heart of all economic activities, and that's
correct.
The main reason that we need to care more about the people then and how people think and behave as related to sustainability. That's a very strong point of view there, Professor. I'm agree with you. And the other issue is about the access to technology. As we are now under the COVID-19, we work from home, we studied from home, and beside COVID-19, with all of the natural disasters that can happen in one country, one tropical country, and also some other countries, this access to technology is very important to allow them to continue with their life. So it's part of the telecommunication, the facilities that they must have access to as a basic needs, actually. Yeah. So that is a very important issue that I believe in Indonesia we are also focusing on those two, as Indonesia and Philippines are pretty much in the same boat in terms of calamities of natural disasters.
Correct.
But of course, I know also, the Philippines got more tough challenges in terms of the typhoon there. So my heart goes to the Philippines in terms of these calamities that they are undergoing too. And I would like to continue that with the fact that we are now already talk about each organization's perspective, more or less, on how innovations or redirections of businesses as related to each organization should be done. And how do you think about the country level itself? previously we talked about this COVID-19 redirection of business performances, but in a global manner. So how about in the country where you are in now? So for that, I would like to start with Jessica. Jessica, are you there? Yes. So what do you think? So in terms of SDG and COVID-19, will there be any impact on how companies and also the country itself, the government, will be able to achieve SDG in Indonesia? What do you see? What do you observe so far?
This is a rather difficult question, yeah. I don't know if I am eligible to answer this because saying about national how it is. I think in a way from what I see is people are still moving towards achieving to the goals or trying to do the targets, yeah, to do the all of the targets because at least from what my perspective is, everybody trying to make work with what we are currently in, and then be creative, like you said, like Isaac said, yeah, about being creative. So of course, in the beginning of the COVID-19, the government were busy trying to work around, especially with the budgets, of course. Yeah, how they manage this here and there, but there was just some delays. But I think looking at this, maybe there are some workarounds, but they are still trying to get that all of the targets that they envision to achieve. Yeah, maybe there are some delays which looking at nationally, yeah. Although looking at the business as well, of course we cannot say that everybody suffer. We cannot say that some suffer, some not, some maybe are churning it, churning it. So it's just a shift, I would say. It's a shift. But for the SDG target, I think in the things that are on my view, at least, yeah, they are still running, although maybe slower, yeah, which I don't mind actually. I think this couple of years we have been moving very, very fast, and it's making everyone is sick. I don't know with you guys, yeah, but I was like, oh my gosh, I've been hurried up all the time, running and running. So this COVID-19 situation actually keep people grounded to see that what is most important, like Professor Colin has said as well, like people is most important. We see things differently now. So maybe some things are not that matter to us anymore. There's a shift. You cannot say that it doesn't do that. And then maybe taking it slower doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually taking the earth to breathe as well. So I'm optimistic. So I think people are still getting there. And of course, if you see the trend in the global emission, for example, everybody's saying, yay, finally. And I say, no, it's not about what the companies are doing, is COVID. Everybody just stopped going anywhere. Yeah, I think that's my view on it, Budewi. But maybe you can also add on that.
So I thank you very much for the opinion and then the insights. I think it comes from the life cycle assessment perspective in a way that you see that companies are still going on with the businesses that they already have. It's just that it will be slowed down, and then they will rethink about what they can do and cannot do. And then just like Isaac and also Professor Colin already stated, that people will need to be more flexible and also reach out to different technologies to move on with their businesses. And so the the same question, and I promise you that will be the last question that I ask in this talk show. I would like to direct it to Thomas from corporate citizenship. So, what will be your perspective on this achievement of SDG in Singapore? Because you are now located in Singapore. So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's. I think the SDGs have set a very ambitious but incredibly important set of goals for all of us to pay attention to, because for the first time they've brought together development and sustainability, right? The Sustainable Development Goals. And why that's important is because those things should have never been separated. We should never have been looking at, you know, how we can we develop without thinking about how can we do it sustainably so that we're able to continue to provide and live for generations to come. And one of the good things about the Sustainable Development Goals is that they are universal. So whether you're a developing country or a developed country, you can look at the goals and determine, you know, what's relevant and what's most important for your nation. Here in Singapore, it's a very developed country in many respects, but it doesn't mean poverty and problems don't exist. So there's certainly work to be done. But I think the biggest challenge for Singapore inevitably will be that of climate change. We're a small island state, and if sea levels rise, there's only so much you can do to build up. And so I think the Singapore government's very conscious of this, and they've taken a lot of very important steps in recent years, setting our own targets, working with businesses, working with the whole as a hub for investment and finance, working with institutions as well to promote more sustainable practices. There's a lot of investment going to innovation, etc. in this regard. And this is where the Goal 17 also comes in, because which is about partnership and collaboration. There's only so much Singapore can do, and I think engaging with the other ASEAN countries and the other countries globally to promote this agenda and work together is also incredibly important. And so I think Singapore also has an important convening role to play from that regard. Because, and this is circling back to, you know, I think what a lot of great insights that have been shared by the other panelists. The Sustainable Development Goals aren't just about protecting the planet or saving, you know, the environment. They are about people and humans, and this is a point that I think Colin made. I think Jess, you made it as well. And there's a quote, I'm not going to get it quite right, but I heard early on at a webinar I attended at the beginning of the pandemic, which is the economy should work for people, not just people working for the economy. Because at the end of the day, you know, we all should be striving to create a better world for ourselves and for future generations to come. And I think the Sustainable Development Goals really embody that. So I really do hope that COVID-19 has been a wake-up call. It's been an opportunity for us to reset. And as we build back, I hope we build back greener. I hope we build back stronger. And I hope we take the whole people aspect of it very seriously. One point, I can't remember who was speaking, I wanted to make it earlier, but is during this time, we've relied a lot on what we've called essential workers. And those are people often not the highest paid, but they're really, at a time like this, you see the value of nurses, you see the value of people that are, you know, keeping the economy going at a time like this when, you know, probably the people on this panel, we have the luxury to work from home and do other things. But there's a lot of people on the front lines, whether it's in industry or in healthcare, who are allowing us to continue as a society. So I think we also need to rethink the way things work to ensure that they're also looked after. But there's so much to talk about. I'm sure we won't do it all justice, but I hope that is insightful for some of the listeners here today. And I'll hand back and see if there's any final thoughts.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I know where you come from when you are referring to the basic services here in Singapore. So yes, I agree with you that especially during the lockdown, then we see the importance of those basic services that we dying to see and enjoy again. Because we couldn't have it when we were in a lockdown in Singapore. So thank you very much for the four panelists. So for now, I can conclude that in terms of the main theme here, which is about COVID-19, sustainability, and how businesses can go on during and post COVID-19, then I can conclude that there are some significant points that already made here. First point is about the operational changes. Obviously, that will be the first line that happening. And even after COVID-19, there will be adjustments as related to that. And these changes will be made possible as related to technology innovations that enable companies to connect to one another and continue with their businesses. But all of this will not happen if there is no change in the strategic thinking to be more flexible in the assumptions of businesses during and post-COVID. And as related to sustainability itself, the business mindset must care more about the people that are the heart of the business operations itself, instead of thinking about profitability first. They need to think about people first. People are the central of any economic activity. And so caring about them, caring about how they conduct their businesses, their economic activities, will eventually lead to proper sustainability commitment that, of course, will be slightly different from one organization to another, depending on the industry itself. So these are the strong points that we already gathered from this talk show. And I really thank you, all of the four panelists, for allocating their time and efforts to be in the talk show. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lisa, Jessica, Thomas, bye.
Thank
Vivi.
you, Khalid.
Bye. Take care.
Take care.
See you soon. See you soon.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye. See you next time.
Thank you very much for your attention and for listening to our talk show. And now that we already concluded our talk show, I would like to return the podium back to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dewi, for the very interesting talk show.
And ladies and gentlemen, Ririn, we just have an interesting views and perspective on the impact COVID-19 pandemic in this region. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Philippines from 4 distinguished panelists.
Yes.
Now we will continue the top agenda of this event, the awarding ceremony for Asia Sustainability Reporting Rating ASRRAT 2020.